Hi there, Mark. As you know, I'm Samantha Shepherd with Assured Trust Company, a Kansas-based special needs focused trust company. I am so pleased that you agreed to speak with me today to give me some insight that I can share with our population about special needs trusts and special needs planning. So I want to tell the audience first that although you are with Prime Capital Investment, that the views that you're going to share with me are not those of the company, but are for educational purposes only. So that said, can you give us a little bit about your background? What drew you into the special needs world?
Well, it began quite a few years ago. I have family members who are disabled. My sister-in-law is in a wheelchair because of rheumatoid arthritis. I have a brother with a spinal condition that prevents him from working and has him on painkillers all the time. And so, over the years, I had seen that for people with disabilities, they have the same financial planning issues as everyone else, but they also have a number of additional layers. And that got me interested in, because honestly, there aren't that many people who have that specialty. It's a bit of a niche, and it's something that I had a passion for. And in fact, it led to me volunteering. I actually, for the last 14 or 15 years, have chaired the Persons with Disabilities Advisory Board for the city of Olathe. And we operate as a resource for the disabled community and for the elderly too. And actually, a lot of times the elderly don't refer to themselves as disabled, but they have the same issues, especially mobility issues. So I also chair the board at Evergreen Living Innovations in Olathe, which is a not-for-profit that was formed by Johnson County to serve seniors and primarily those on Medicaid. And
So you know
so,
you're singing my song here. You're singing the elderly and the special needs, but you're
yes.
also, probably not a lot of people know this, but you're also an attorney. How do you weave your legal background into your financial advising practice?
Well, I practiced law for several years right out of school, and determined that I loved the law more than I did practicing it. And so I've been a financial planner now for about almost 30 years. But I would not trade that background because I'm working with folks like you, with attorneys, with trust companies, and that's a valuable background. I can speak the legal speak when necessary, and it gives me that ability to see um, issues from multiple angles.
Well, Assured Trust approached you. As Assured Trust, we approached you because we are independent as a trust company, and we are looking for people who come with their own advisors. And you particularly have this niche of obviously you're very committed and you're very involved in your volunteer work in the community, but you also know a lot. So don't let me think this is no free lunch here. Tell me a little bit. Tell me what I can share. Just if I could get you to touch on maybe 2 or 3 key things that you want us to take away. What do you want me to tell the special needs families now that are thinking about whether they need to plan?
yes, when you see when you hear people talk about special needs planning, or you see or go to seminars about it, often what you don't hear is that this is a family-wide issue. If you have a special needs child and mom and dad are taking care of that child, then mom and dad need to do planning. I analogize it to when you get on the aircraft at the airport, and the flight attendant is giving that talk about how if the oxygen mask comes down, you take care of yourself first so that you can then take care of others. It's the same here. That child depends on those parents or caregivers. And so we need to make sure that what we need to look at things like what happens if that caregiver, that parent becomes disabled because they're sick or injured. What happens with the income when that happens, and how are we going to not only fund a trust, but just keep the bills paid? What happens if we get into retirement and one of them needs nursing care, and we go through all of the assets that we're going to go to that trust? Um, are we disinheriting another child in the process?
True, true. I
That
didn't
would
mean to cut you off there. I apologize. I just wanted to jump in and say, but is there an age? I know that families think, well, we don't have enough money to plan.
no. It is always a good idea to have a track to run on. I don't think there is a wrong age at all. You might not be able to do everything at once, but at least we know then how to get from point A to point B and what the steps are. And then we can prioritize those steps and attack them one at a time. Even funding a trust. If the assets aren't there, then maybe we look at life insurance where you can put a small amount in each month, and that at death produces a large tax-free sum that will care for that child. Not, in fact, most of the families that come to me are not independently wealthy. If they are, of course, that makes things easier, but it can still be done, and I don't want anyone to feel intimidated by that.
Well, I can't emphasize enough how much of a freeing sort of feeling it is when I talk to you that you know the broader picture. You know that families with teenagers that are approaching 18 are going to be looking at guardianship, and you also, the whole idea of a special needs trust is a familiar ground for you. But it was interesting that you mentioned both generations right out. You mentioned something catastrophic happening to the younger families, and then you mentioned the parents at the end of their life not having made plans. Have you seen some of that?
Oh, yes, yeah. Um, Too few people have taken care of that long-term care exposure, and boy, that can eat up assets in a hurry. If you're paying 60, 70, $80,000 a year for one person in a nursing facility, you're using up a lot of assets very quickly. Yes, I've seen that, and issues where if we go another generation, an aunt, an uncle, a grandparent might want to contribute to the special needs trust for that child, but it hasn't been coordinated. And so it's not running through the trust. So you're losing that money in the process by not coordinating at the different levels. And yeah, I've seen that happen.
So how accessible are you to people who are curious but don't feel comfortable? As I said, maybe we don't have enough money, or we don't have an estate. How approachable are you, or how available are you if somebody just has a question?
Oh, absolutely. And I typically do not charge planning fees. I find that most people, um, whatever they may need, whether it's now or in the future, if it's an insurance product or an investment or whatever, they're 99% of the time, they're going to do that with the planner who knows their plan and knows where they are. So I'm commissioned or receive fees on those products. That being the case, I typically don't charge for the plan. So don't be put off by that. And I will tell you too, especially because of my family background and seeing what happens to others.
Excuse me, I hope I didn't ruin that video.
Um, having seen what's gone on with family members and others, I know that a lot of folks can't afford to do a lot upfront. And like I said, we'll prioritize things and take it a step at a time. So I don't want people to be put off or hesitant about doing something. The sooner you start, the better. Time is your friend, both in terms of on the insurance side, you're younger, more likely to be healthy, and on the investment side, more time for money to grow. And
So
so,
if we don't have money, but we just want your brain, we want peace of mind. House, we have a house with a mortgage and we have a 401k, and we're just starting to save. You're still okay talking to families at that stage?
sure, sure.
No, I appreciate hearing that. Just, can I ask you to give a bit of a plug for your group in Olathe that you're on the board of? Can you tell?
Yeah, the Persons with Disabilities Advisory Board. We actually were formed in 1985 to advise the city on complying with ADA. It's kind of evolved. We don't get too many ADA complaints anymore, but we've evolved into a resource and an advocate for the disabled and senior citizens. And we do a lot in the community. In fact, we started and still support the Midwest Ability Summit, is what it's called now. That happens in the fall and takes up most of the Overland Park Convention Center for a full day. And we have whoever works with the disabled and elderly, they are there. We usually have about 160 booths and demonstrations on all kinds of adaptive sports and deaf choirs and disabled artists. It's a neat event. We also sponsor the Greater Kansas City Disability Mentoring Day, where we bring disabled job seekers in and train them with experts from area companies on resume writing, interviewing skills, and workplace skills. And then we provide a lunch and a job fair with area employers. We've been doing that for about a dozen years now, actually.
So I'm going to interrupt you and say, how do I tell people to reach you?
Well, it's probably with COVID, it's probably easier to call my cell, which is 913-485-5346. I do have.
Tell me that cell again.
913-485-5346.
Okay.
My direct line to my office is 913-320-2034, or my email is mgash, M-G-A-S-H, @pciawealth.com. So any of those are fine. If I'm not able to answer the phone, leave a message and tell me when to call you back.
I think what I'd like to do next, Mark, is if I can give you a little, we'll close up for today, but if I can give you a little tease about what I'd like to ask you again and have you back, I'd love to ask if you could give us what we think special needs families need to do now that the stretch has gone away for everyone else except for the special needs families. I think that's a wonderful topic.
Right. It used to be that when you left an IRA to a child, for instance, that money could be stretched and paid out over their lifetime. They've removed that under the Secure Act, I believe it was. And but there are still ways to do a stretch on a special needs trust without getting too much into the weeds. That's still a possibility if it's set up correctly. There are some criteria, but that remains. And so that's something to be thinking about.
Well, thank you super much for your time. I'm super happy to have met you sort of serendipitously. Yeah, I've used super twice. But I think that there will be many more opportunities for me to direct people to your expertise in the future. And I will call upon you and ask for various different keys. Those of us who are Assured Trust are welcome to learn. We're continuing to learn all the time from industry professionals and people who put their heart and passion into giving to the special needs community. So thank you. Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure. I'm surprised, Samantha, that we hadn't crossed paths earlier, given how active we are in this. But it's a real pleasure, and I appreciate having you there to assist with people that I'm working with also.
Well, thanks very much. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll see you again.
All right.